and welcome to Dice and Demons. I'm Emma, and in this video I want to both show you my rainbow colored Space Marine that I painted, and I also want to discuss Warhammer Pride. So this is the month of June and it's Pride Month, which is the month that we celebrate diversity like LGBTQ+. And I have seen a bunch of people trying to show off their LGBT themed models on various hobby spaces. And a lot of them are either taken down really quickly or are met with a bunch of comments in the style of, so why do you show this here? I mean, keep politics out of the hobby. And while I do agree with the idea that we shouldn't have a lot of politics in our hobby spaces, I mean, I certainly don't join a, let's say, a Facebook group for Warhammer to see people discussing party politics and tax reforms or educational stuff. I fail to see how celebrating diversity and inclusivity really has a lot to do with politics. As some of you probably know, I am a woman and I'm married to another woman, so I am myself a member of the LGBT plus community, and I for one certainly do not view my marriage as any more political, inherently political, than if my marriage had been to a man. I really don't. So I don't understand how showing, let's say, a rainbow colored Space Marine or two Space Marines holding hands or any sort of things like that can be seen as political. I mean, it's a celebration of diversity and of different people's identities, and I don't think we should try to keep that away from our hobby spaces. For me at least, the hobby space is a place I go to celebrate my hobby with a lot of other people who enjoy the same hobby as I do, and I sure hope that I am welcome there being the person I am. And I mean, I have a whole bunch of facets to my identity just like everyone else, and one of those facets is that I am a lesbian. And I really do not hope that people see that part of my identity as something political that I should somehow hide in order to be able to participate in my hobby. Because I never really see people being told to, hide being straight. Because that is apparently not political. I don't quite get it, and I don't think that it is good for the hobby if we try to make people hide parts of their identity, or censor them if they show them off, or celebrate that people can have, be all sorts of ways, and have all sorts of, identities, and it can be, sexual orientation, neurodiversity, all sorts of things. Let's celebrate that, and let's keep our hobby spaces inclusive. That's what I am hoping for anyway. Because if we say that something like this that is such an deeply ingrained part of a person's identity is something that they cannot bring to the hobby, well, then we are telling people that they are not welcome as the persons they are. And I don't think that it has something to do with politics. I think that has something to do with whether or not we want to be decent and friendly and open and want to see the hobby grow even. I would not really want to participate in a hobby where I am not welcome. I'm really lucky. The local places I go, in person, there are no issues whatsoever with me being part of the LGBTQ community. But if there was, I would stay home. I would probably at some point just lose all interest in the hobby, and I think that would be a shame for me, and I think it would be a shame for a lot of other people if they felt the same way, felt that they were not welcome just because they are the person that they are. So that is my take on it, and I know that this might not be a very popular opinion, but I think if you have even a small platform, which I do now, tiny YouTube platform, but still a platform, I think if you can speak up for minorities, you should. And so this is me trying to do that. And I will say that if we cannot be inclusive and welcoming in our hobby, and say that, for instance, being LGBTQ is political and that it should stay out of the hobby, then we are not supporting anything that's good. We are instead adding to shame and stigma, and I really can't see how on earth that would help us bring the hobby forward in any sort of way. So I really hope that we can all get together and be welcoming and inclusive and celebrating pride and celebrating diversity in our hobby spaces. Not just with LGBTQ plus, but in all sorts of ways. So let's make it a hobby where everyone feels welcome. That is my hope anyway. So enough with the ranting, enough with the talking. Now I want to show you how I painted this Pride Marine. So I start off using contrast paints, as I almost always do, and this one is Blood Angels Red. I've decided that I want to paint this guy in the whole spectrum of the rainbow, going from red to, well, sort of purple really, but I like pink better, so it'll end up being pink on top. So I start out with the Blood Angels Red, and then I take some Gryph-hound Orange. I've tried to divide the model into almost equal parts so that there'll be sort of even amounts of the different kinds of colors on him. It wasn't quite, it's not something like a scientific process or anything, but I tried to do it anyway. Then I take some Yanden Yellow, also a contrast paint, as you can see, and I'm just slopping it on really quickly here. Contrast paints will leave uneven surfaces, as you can see here, especially on big pieces of armor, but I don't really mind. And here I am using the Warp Lightning, the green contrast paint, and as you'll notice, I'm using the brightest contrast paints that I can find, instead of using the more muted contrast paints that you could also go to. But for my painting projects, it is usually the brighter the better. For the blue, I am using Talazar Blue, which I think gives such a nice, rich, vibrant blue. I don't use this paint as much as I probably should. Every time I pick it up and do something with it, I fall in love with it all over again, and I promise myself to use it more in future projects, and then I forget all about it. And perhaps one of the reasons why I forget all about it is because of this lovely color. This is Volupus Pink, and I think together with Athematic Blue, it is one of my all-time favorite colors. I mean, it's such a bright pink. It makes me happy every single time I use it. Next up, I add some shading both on the red and on the orange using Snakebite Leather, also a contrast paint. And you can see I try to do sort of a bit of a dark line, and then I also do some cross hatching to sort of give the illusion of shadows. I mean, you could do something really fancy and wet blending and stuff, but I think that cross hatching works just as well and gives a nice sort of graphic look to a model. For the yellow parts, I do the same thing, only using Gryph-hound Orange. And again, here you can see a little bit better perhaps the cross hatches that I am using. On the blue, green and pink, I use the same color. This is Pterodon Turquoise. I think it has a nice, it's nice and dark and will give some really clear shadows, while at the same time not being as stark as, for instance, a completely black color would be. Pterodon Turquoise is also another favorite contrast paint of mine. Then I start doing some highlights on the red parts of the armor. I use an orange. This is just a generic orange I got from somewhere. And on the yellow parts, I first off highlight using Flash Sketch Yellow. And again, I am applying these cross hatches you can see here, and to give this sort of graphic look to the model. And for a very last highlight, I just touch it with a tiny bit of Wraithbone. You can also see on the red armor that I touched it up with a tiny bit of yellow as well. For the green armor, I'm using Mood Green as the first layer of highlights. And I mean, this is not sort of a true non-metallic metal look or anything I'm going for, but I do try to get more of the lighter colors on top of the model, or where I imagine that light would hit it, but I also just sometimes apply it where I think it would look good, like here for instance, with the light blue color that I'm using to highlight the blue parts of the armor. Perhaps there wouldn't be like really nice blue crisp highlights here, but I think it looks nice. And this is also just some generic light blue I found somewhere in my box of paints. For the pink armor, I am using a mixture between the Army Painter's Matte White and a pigment called Cyclam Red from PK Pro. I just mix it in, well, not equal amounts, but just sort of mix it really well in an empty painting pot, and then it ends up looking like this. Is really nice, vibrant pink color. And it was just an idea I got from somewhere, and I tried it out, and I think it works really well. It has a nice consistency. It's pretty easy to paint with. It's a little bit thicker than normal paints, and if you put it on a really big surface, it'll look a little bit grainy because of the pigments. But for stuff like this, I think it works really well. And also, of course, it glows under a UV light, as does the green highlight I'm using here. This is a mixture of Tesseract Glow and a neon yellow pigment from, I believe this one is from Green Stuff World. And this will, I think this is such a nice vibrant green that fits really well with the rainbow theme of this model. And as a very last highlight on the green, I also use just a tiny touch of yellow. Not a whole lot, just tiny touch. And lastly, both on the pink and on the blue parts of the armor, I use a bit of the Army Painter's Matte White as a final highlight to really make it pop. And I use the white a little bit sparingly, just to make sure that it doesn't sort of drain the saturation of the model. And here you can see the finished piece, and I am really happy with my Rainbow Warrior. This was actually really fun to paint. I bought a whole box of Space Marines. Just I actually didn't have any lying around, so I bought a whole box just to paint the single Space Marine for this video. And I kind of feel like, you know, painting all 10 of them like this. On the other hand, I have way too many projects already, so I don't think I will, but this was definitely fun. And I hope you like it. If you have any sort of comments or questions or anything, you are, of course, as always, more than welcome to leave them in the comment section below. And you are also more than welcome to like this video or dislike it if you disagree with me. You can also, of course, subscribe to my channel. And if you want to follow my painting, you can follow me as Dyson Demons on social media such as Twitter and Instagram. And I also have a Facebook group called the Dyson Demons Showroom, which you are more than welcome to join as well. So thank you so much for watching this video, guys, and I will see you next time. So bye.